up, guys? Tambo here with your weekly core report. This last week was our biggest ever for our members, including 2 more millionaires. Let's get to the winners. NFL was our biggest cash cow last week, highlighted by some great calls across all of our content, including JT Hayes being all over the 49ers game script on Sunday. Subscribe to our YouTube page now so you don't miss calls like this.
A little bit like the San Francisco defense, 3,200. I think Todd Bowles is a terrible head coach. And I think they'll come in with a terrible game plan in this game. And I think they could get wiped. I think it means a lot of touches for Christian McCaffrey. So if you simply pivot from Henry to McCaffrey, that's a huge ownership discount.
In addition, our cores and player pools were littered with the highest scoring players on the slate. Our members were in sync with our content, and the leaderboards proved it. Peter Pan 14 kicked things off, hitting for 117K in NFL Showdown. J-Dub 115 hit for 7K. Sammy Davis Jr. hit for 10K. OG member Brittany turned $75 into 11K. Jay Reed won 30K. CSP 246 shipped 40K. Craven or Vad used Mangones and my weekly construction advice to hit for 40K. And K Fallick hit for 46K with a Russell Wilson lineup. We'll get to our biggest NFL winners in just a second, but first we need to shout out some big wins in our other sports. Our content continued to crush in the soccer streets, with NYG fan hitting for 10K. K Fallick's hot streak continued in the World Cup, shipping for 27K. In NBA, Long Dick Dong hit for 7K, while in MMA, Sevens Vox shipped a monster 51K. At Rumpier Sports, we take pride in featuring content contributors who actually make a living playing DFS. We put our money behind our picks on every slate, unlike many of our competitors. There's nothing better than when our members benefit from our content, and this week was the best week yet, producing 2 DraftKings Millie Maker winners to follow up last week's Millie Maker success. Shout out to Deepwater, who shipped $1 million in the 44-44. And huge shout out as well to Gordon Jonathan. He shipped the $20 Millionaire Maker with a monster score of 272 DK points, blowing away the competition. Congrats again to all our members. If you want to be featured in the core report, drop your winning lineup in the Members Never Win channel in our premium Discord. If you're not a member, join now. You won't find a better value with all sports included for one low price. And while you're watching, hit that like button now. Remember, if you're not winning with us, you're watching us win. Until next time, let's keep running pure.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. NBA Hardwood Show, Mangone, DC, myself, Title, breaking it all down. 5 games, it's better. It feels like than it's been the past month or so. It feels like every Tuesday and Thursday, especially Tuesdays, 3 games, 4 games if you're lucky. Get a little 5-game slate, not too much injury news we're waiting on. A little bit in the earlier games, mainly though. DC, I'll throw it to you first. We let's not even touch on NBA right now. Let's talk a little bit of MLB. My Brewers, I love what I saw yesterday. William Contreras. There's been a lot of news. I still keep Underdog MLB notifications on my phone. Seems like a bunch going on this offseason. So anything you want to touch on there? I mean, we spend so much time in MLB. You're digging into it all season long. Got to touch on it a little in the offseason.
Yeah, so that's an interesting trade. Contreras to the Brewers. I'm not really sure what the Braves were honestly thinking. They got Murphy back in the deal, so that was an interesting one. Obviously, the biggest piece of news is Judge back to the Yankees. The donkey reporter John Heyman messed it up with the Giants report, so that was pretty funny. But yeah, baseball, like the offseason for baseball, I don't think is as exciting as the other sports, just because it's such an individual game where it's like football, you get a quarterback to a new team or a wide receiver to a new team. It affects everyone around them. Whereas baseball, it's just like the batter versus pitcher matchup, right? So you get a pitcher to a new team. Yeah, you got to adjust to, the new opponents and lineups he'll face and the new parks and all that stuff. But it's a much simpler process than like trying to put together a basketball team, right? That adds new pieces and how they're going to all fit together. So I still enjoy it and I certainly follow it, but it just doesn't change the landscape quite as much as, NBA, NFL trades where it affects everyone on the team. Really, baseball is a game of just like adding up the cumulative WAR that your wins over replacement that your team can get on the field and hoping for the best in the playoffs, right? So it's a little bit simpler in that aspect.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's so cool to see new names on new teams. It's fun when you stack them up. But yeah, I mean, the shortstop's going to field ground balls whatever team you play for. I mean,
I will say the Mets $160 million to Brandon Nimmo seemed that was the most outrageous contract I think I've seen so far.
Yeah, that is. I would call that just a little bit of an overspend.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money for good for him though, man. Brandon Nimmo made it.
He is very fast at getting down to first base after a walk. So
he doesn't strike out much. He's got that going for him. Man, I know we talked on the earlier NFL show. You don't follow MLB till opening day, so let's talk a little NBA slate. What are your thoughts on this 5-gamer? If you want to talk football, if you do want to talk MLB, whatever you want to talk about, man, what's going on?
Yeah, I do not want to talk about the MLB stuff, and I am a Mets fan, so yeah, not the greatest for us to go with the Nemo thing. But hey, we have Verlander, that's not bad. But we obviously got a pretty nice NBA slate, 5 games, which I'm excited about. We typically come here and we're talking 3 games. DC doesn't want to be here the whole hour, so he just says let's wrap this thing up and get out of here in 45. Who knows? We might make it the whole hour this time. So should be fun to talk about these games. We got some underpriced players. And a totally unique slate. I mean, it's a slate where we have so many stars. Like if I told you, hey, like, where's an NBA slate where we got all the stars out? Like this is one of them. Now, like for a 5-gamer, there's a ton. But the crazy part about it is there's so many mispriced mid-tier guys that you're not getting to the stars as much as you'd think. So it makes for a very, very interesting slate, and should be a good time to talk about it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Derek in chat, he said balance build season ? It's kind of what it sounds like, man. That's your initial thoughts right now?
So, like, I think there's 2 ways you can go. I think you can do the balance build, but there's ways where you can grab, like, an Embiid, a Giannis. Like, there are ways where you can do it. But if you told me I had to prioritize jamming in some studs or jamming in, like, these mid-tier guys, I think it'd be jamming in these mid-tier guys. That's kind of my initial read. Like, yesterday's slate, I think it was like you need to prioritize kind of getting in like Luka. That was like one guy that you kind of just knew, hey, you're going to play a bunch of value plays, but just jam in Luka. Make sure to get him in there. For me, it's like make sure to jam in these like mid-tier options and then go from there. So you can grab some of these studs. It's certainly possible to go up top and grab Zion, LeBron, Giannis, Curry, James Harden. Like it's possible to grab all these guys, but it's going to require, a punt or 2 and then a little bit of a different construction. And it's not something that's like that far off the beaten path.
Yeah. I mean, on a 5-game slate, 5 guys over 10.5K, 5 other guys in the 9K options. I think ownership's kind of spread out too up top. I mean, I'm excited for this slate. I think it's going to be a good one. So we'll dive in. But first, I got to say hi to a couple people in chat. Brandon Wyatt, Edward, Richie Smalls, Kid, Crew, Buckneer, Maul, Nadesify, Jordan, Cesar Martinez, Beanair, Michael Knack. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Junior, as Junior said, hit that like as always and that big red subscribe button. Want to get you the plays of the day. But 5 games, let's get to the first one of the night. I'll say the times of the games, actually. It's always nice to know. So 1 game at 7 p.m. Eastern, then 1 game at 7:30, 1 game at 8, 1 game at 9, and 1 game at 10. So 5 different start times on this slate. But most of the injury news is in the earlier games. First game, Sacramento Kings, Philadelphia 76ers, 228.5 total. Philly is favored by 5. On the Kings side, De'Aaron Fox is questionable. Obviously, very big news on the slate. We'll get it hopefully on the show, otherwise on the Up to Lock show, which is important to watch. As far as the Philly side, D'Anthony Melton also questionable. Big news on the slate. Tyrese Maxey is still out. DC, I mean, Fox out, Davion Mitchell gets a bump. All the Kings get a bump. So I guess if-then scenarios for the Kings side. And then Melton, I guess injury news could mean a little bit. What are your thoughts on this first game?
Yeah, we've seen Fox out for a couple games. And, the players that people wanted to play or did play and kind of thought would go off really hasn't come through, right? Davion Mitchell with 2 mediocre at best games in a row, 21 and 15. And the next one, Malik Monk, who I didn't play on Sunday when the Kings played the Knicks, but he was a very popular play. I thought he was going to go off against Cleveland, put up 8 fantasy points in that one. So really the 2 guards, that you thought would take over for De'Aaron Fox really haven't played very well. So that's interesting. Kevin Huerter has been good for sure in those two games. And then you have seen Sabonis kind of step up pretty well, especially in the assist department in those two. So, obviously dependent on Fox. I think I'd be more likely to go back to Malik Monk than Davion Mitchell if Fox does miss. I mean, in this last game, Monk, in 23 minutes, it was a blowout a little bit, got up 15 shots, just made 3 of them. So I think he could get hot, have a good game off the bench for Sacramento. Monk would be someone I would look at. You could play Mitchell, Huerter, and even Sabonis is interesting despite the tough matchup. And then Philly, with Harden back, really becomes kind of the two-man team that you saw for much of the beginning of the year, right? Where Harden and Embiid are both nightly pretty good plays. Oftentimes kind of want to separate them, although in these last couple, they both had strong games. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey out, and then Melton could potentially be out as well, too. So the Sixers would be very shorthanded at that point. The entire offense basically runs through Harden and Embiid. I'll probably pick one or the other. I think it's close between the two. I think both will have strong games. It's just they're both so expensive that, what do you need? At least 50 probably out of Harden and 60 from Embiid. I mean, they can get there together for sure, but I think I do prefer to split them. And then Sacramento obviously got to wait for the Fox news to kind of figure out where we're going there. But I do think Monk probably my favorite play, despite his recent struggles. I do think if Fox is out again, he could be due for a big game here.
Yep, great breakdown there. I agree with you on one max, Harden or Embiid. Man, last game, Harden took the back seat, only a 20% usage rate. Embiid, 29 shot attempts, absolutely went ham. It looks like Harden's going to be higher owned today, sub 10K, 9.7. Embiid, 2,000 more at 11.7. If Harden's going to be 3x the ownership or something, I like just getting up to Embiid in tournaments. The Kings side, a lot depends on the Fox news. Man, going if-then scenarios with De'Aaron Fox and Sacramento. And then what are your thoughts, Harden, Embiid, anybody on Philly?
Yeah, let's start with the Sixers just so I can kind of get it out the way because it's like kind of more simplistic. And I agree, Title, sure. Like you make a good point of like, if Harden could be higher than Embiid, that makes sense. But the problem is when you play Ayton in the center spot, which it feels like everyone's doing, well, you only have one more spot to plug in a center, right? Like on your entire team. So I think Embiid's a good play, not someone I'm jamming in just because I want to naturally see how he falls on teams. I think that's kind of the key. I do think that Harden is a good play. I think because of obviously you look at between Harden and Embiid, the guard position is easier to put options in, and he can also be a shooting guard option as well. So I think James Harden definitely in play, Embiid in play, but that's it for me on the Sixer side. And that just depends on how it falls with my teams, right? I think I'm prioritizing how am I figuring out how to play these like mid-tier options. Then I'll kind of let my stud, whichever one I land on, kind of let me know what to do. That's kind of how I'm trying to figure everything out on this slate. So we're going to talk about a lot of studs and we're going to be like, yeah, he's a good play. He's a good play just because I think that's the way that I'm going to go about it. I'm going to look at ownership as well as we get closer, and ownership can change and flip on a dime, especially if this news with Fox comes in. Because if Fox is ruled out, DC, I'm with you. Like it's one of those spots where you look at the Kings and you're like, man, they have not been as great, right? When you have Fox out, it has been a brutal ride with Monk and Davion Mitchell. Yeah. But I am still going to consider him, as crazy as it sounds. Mitchell is 4-3. Then you'll also have Terrence Davis could be an interesting punt option, possibly at 3-3 if you really wanted to go down there. You could obviously talk yourself into like a Pat Connaughton, who we'll get to in the next game, over him. But we didn't know what's going to happen with this Fox news. And Sabonis is one of those studs that people always say, yeah, you could probably take a shot on him. But in this matchup, I think there's way too much risk with the foul trouble. And I don't think the reward is really there when there's so many other good studs that you can go to. He just feels so far down the line for me, especially with center being a loaded position as well, where most teams are coming preloaded with DeAndre Ayton in their lineups. And when they do, well, what happens? You can only play one more center. It's just simple. If you're playing one team, you can only play one more. And I just don't think Sabonis makes that list for me. So really on the Sixer side, to recap, Harden and Embiid, both really interesting spend-up options. I would not force Embiid onto your builds. I'd let him naturally come in there, see what happens. I don't mind that rule that you said, Title, separate those guys. I think that's perfectly fine. And then when it comes to this King side of the ball, we need the Fox news. If Fox is out, though, I am going to consider Davion Mitchell again. I'm going to consider these guys. Mainly Mitchell, I think just because he's cheaper. And some of these values that we are looking at today, they're okay, but the best values are in the mid tier. And when you look at some of these real cheap ones that we're going to get to, they're not the safest plays in the world. Sure, they feel like good value plays, but you can poke holes in them for sure, just like you can poke holes in Davion Mitchell.
Christopher in chat asked, man, going great breakdown there. Christopher asked, any Terrence Davis if Fox is out? And then Sean mentioned Keegan Murray's name. So would that also be just Fox is out? Any thoughts on those two, man, going?
Yeah, I think I talked about Terrence Davis. It has more risk, but he has a massive ceiling. We do understand that. And then the Keegan Murray thing. The one thing that's always nice about Keegan Murray is he does start the game. He's 4.6K at that forward position, but sometimes he can kind of like not keep his hands to himself, kind of like Sabonis. And on top of that, he could not close this game. There was a possibility they just bring in Monk to close over him. So he does carry some more risk. Does not make him a bad play, but when I build out my lineups, he's kind of one of those better last pieces in. And then when I put him in there, I like to look and say, hey, what other risky plays do I have in my lineups? Do I want to play Keegan Murray and then maybe play like Damian Lee and then maybe play like another guy who might not get the closing rotation? Like the point I'm getting at is I don't like to have like 3 guys in my lineup that have risks to lose their minutes. Like sometimes I'll go to 2, but it is something I very much think about because then you're trying to hit the parlay of getting everything right on that. And you have to get also right the other stuff in your life. Just feels like a lot has to happen to go your way. And that's one of the concerns that I might have with a Keegan Murray. Doesn't mean he's a bad play. He has upside on this slate. 4.6K is not a bad price tag, but I do think about it with my full lineup for sure. And he makes more of a last piece in kind of guy that gets you like a nice ceiling and you don't have it paired up with too many low floors.
Yeah, that makes sense. Good breakdown. And again, all those guys get a bump if De'Aaron Fox is out. Let's get to the next game on the slate, though. 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Golden State Warriors, Milwaukee Bucks. 234 total. The Bucks are favored by 4. Andrew Wiggins is out for the Warriors. As far as the Bucks, Drew Holiday is questionable, and that's all we have for questionable news. De'Aaron Fox, DeAnthony Melton, and Drew Holiday. So if we get the Drew news before 7 p.m. Eastern, all the news. Of course, starting lineups could change. It's the NBA. Nothing's guaranteed, but everything on the injury report we will have known already. So, DC, I'll go back to you in this one. Man, I mean, the Bucks, the Warriors, 2 of the best teams in the NBA, high total. You got the stars in this one. Drew, if he was somehow out, I just assume he's going to be in. Hoop always talks about with Steven Adams. He's tough. He plays majority of the time. If he was out, of course, the Bucks get a bump, but I would really love Steph in this spot. I still think he's in a good spot. I don't love picking on Drew's individual defense, but man, the ownership looks low today. I could see studs going back and forth. What are your thoughts on this game? It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a tournament game, right? This won't be I don't think, as given the news we have so far, the top game on many people's list. I mean,
everyone's playing the Suns, so
yeah. And even if you're spending, I would rather have Embiid than Giannis myself. Embiid over Steph, but I think that'll be reflected in ownership to some degree. So I think you can get low on studs here. I think if I play this game, it's to get really different. And maybe I play Giannis and Steph together, right? On the same lineup, something like that, a combination that not many people are going to have. And on a 5-game slate, you could have 2 or 3 blowouts. And maybe this is a game that stays close and you get the 40 minutes each from Steph and Giannis. You get the 60+ ceiling games, both of them at low ownership, and you're off to the races at that point. So I think that would be probably my preferred approach to the game. Obviously, the Drew Holiday news, if he's out, I think that stack works better, right? Because the defense on Steph won't be as tight. And then Giannis, he's not affected enormously by the absence of other people, but a little bit at least, right? So yeah, I think if Holiday does sit, I do kind of like that Giannis, Steph, low owned stud stack as a GPP pivot from what I think will be a lot of chalk in some of these other games. We'll get to Phoenix in a minute, where a lot of people are going to have 2-3 plays at least. So we'll see on Drew. And then I think I would mostly go to the studs just to get contrarian Steph and Giannis obviously being the big names, unless we get unexpected news. I don't want to go crazy with this game. Probably not more than a couple pieces total in any individual lineup.
Yeah, it makes sense. I do think we see a couple get there though, but it's just like for the Warriors, there's Jordan Poole, someone has in chat. Steph over Poole with him starting Kyle last. I know. I mean, if I have to pick 1 point per dollar, it's definitely Jordan Poole, and not considering ownership. 6.4K, it's just so much cheaper. Get the hometown narrative. He's going back home if you like that stuff. Shooting a ton, usage is there. They're still without Wiggins. So I would definitely take the price tag with Poole. I think Draymond's got a good price tag. Even Clay at 6'8". I mean, we know Clay, he can get hot and he'll break a slate at low ownership. So, man, I think this game's interesting, but I'm with DC. There's Steph, there's Giannis, there's a lot of expensive pieces that you like more. So you can't just go all in on this game, it feels like. Mango, what are your thoughts on the Warriors and the Bucks?
Yeah, I mean, definitely not a game you can go all in, like you said. I do think it's a game that we want to consider. We don't want to completely ignore. We'll start at the top. Giannis, he's a great spend today because, like I said before, if you have Ayton coming in a lot of people's lineups, just being pushed in there, well, what are you going to do with some of these other guys spend up options at the center position? Like Embiid, Davis, and Giannis, you're going to see that ownership get split up a bit. Now, the one thing with Giannis that will make him higher owned than Embiid and Davis, in my opinion, sure, the price tag is higher, but he's power forward eligible. And because of that power forward eligibility, that gives you the ability to roster him at that spot. So I think people will see that and see the Golden State matchup and go, this is a spot where he's absolutely going to eat. And I think it's a good play. Let's talk about Drew Holiday. I think he's going to play. But if he doesn't play, we're going to throw everything out the window and the slate changes. And not saying this show is pointless, but you get what I'm saying. Like, this is something that the lock show will take care of. We'll talk about the Discord. Maybe we'll get something in 30 minutes, but I'm assuming and thinking he's playing. I also think Chris Middleton's going to play, and Chris Middleton is only 6K. Like, can we talk about this price tag title? This is one of those like small things sometimes, and it's like the most simplistic DFS thing, but you can play Chris Middleton at 6K, or you can play Kelly Olynyk at 5'9". I know they're not the same position, but like, it seems like a crazy tag, and it seems like one that we need to take notice of. Yes, he hasn't played as great. He hasn't popped off yet. Is this the easiest matchup in the world? No, not the easiest spot. But I do think Chris Middleton is in the conversation today, not someone I will be ignoring. He'll be in my pool when I kind of build out my lineups. But the question is, will I play him versus some of these other guys? Because this 6K range is loaded with a lot of good plays. Some on the Suns that we'll get to. CJ McCollum in a future game as well. Some of these Boston options. So I think he's going to get completely overlooked. Then you're also going to have Jordan Poole, who I think is going to be pretty popular today at 6.4K. Feels like a great way to get exposure to this game. Curry is kind of like Giannis for me. Hey, he can nuke any slate. Interesting spend up option. If Drew's in, no one's going to go to him because they're going to be all worried about Drew Holiday's defense in the matchup. But Curry is matchup proof. Let's be honest. On these, it's always on these short slates. The Warriors always get the play on the Tuesday and Thursday TNT slates. Curry is virtually unowned. And there's times where he just goes for 70 DK points and it's just, he's on the winner. So it can happen. He's certainly in the conversation today. But if I had to pick one stud, Curry or Giannis, my lean is Giannis. I should mention Pat Connaughton just because the value plays, like guys under 4K, are not amazing today. And I do think he's an interesting one to put into your lineups as a value to help you get another stud option. He's been playing a little bit of minutes, so I think he's in play. Not a guy I absolutely love, though. More of a last piece in to get you a stud in your lineup. So overall, I think that's most of the guys. On the Warrior side, it's really Poole and Curry, like I talked about. Poole, the best play on that Warrior side. Curry, that contrarian spend up. On Milwaukee, it's Giannis is like one of the better spends on this slate. Just depends if you can afford him and put him into your lineups. Chris Middleton, very underpriced play today that you should be considering in your lineups. Will be a little bit under-owned. There are better plays in that range, but don't completely X him out because we know what he can do. He's more of a 7.5, 8K player. And then Pat Connaughton is a value. Not the worst idea because of what it can get you for your lineup.
Yeah, I like that Pat call. I mean, we have a couple of value spots we're about to get to next game, but outside that Sun spot, there isn't too much really strong value. Look at the last 4 games for Pat. Look at his 3-point attempts. He went 2 for 8, 2 for 6, 2 for 7, and 1 for 6 from downtown. Make a couple more shots. You're putting up 24 DK points at that price, and it's about what it gets you on this slate. So I am good with Pat.
Yeah, real quick, title. Well. Someone asked in chat, they said, why did Middleton only play 6 minutes last game? He got hurt. He didn't come back into the game. He's probable for today. Is there a chance he randomly pops up and like gets like ruled out here at 5:30? Yeah, there's a chance, but like he's currently listed as probable on the injury report. And we just work with the news that we got, and I'm assuming he's good to go. So
yeah, I mean,
he's in right now.
I mean, yeah, he was hurt for a long time to start the season. He rolled his ankle. If he was at any question, why would he not be questionable or doubtful, or they just sit him in this game? I assume he's full and he's ready to go. So I wouldn't look at that too much. But that is the Bucks and the Warriors. We got 3 games left. Mangona, 550 watching, 175 likes. You set the number because yesterday it was hurtful. They didn't get there for me. So set the number for us so the people know.
All right. Well, I just became 176, so I just joined in. We're
Slacker.
at 556. Let's get this thing to 300, guys. You can get it there. Come on, we got a lot of time too. DC, we're not pulling the plug in 20 minutes, right? We'll make it a little bit longer.
What is this accusing me of wanting to pull the plug early? You're just making stuff up over there. This
because you tried to do it to me the past couple of shows, so I'm trying to turn it back around on you. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're doing here.
I don't know what I just walked myself into, but you got a new host that has to separate these two now in the middle.
Well, I let it
show.
go the first time. Took a shot at me the first time, but he does it again. I had to fire
Listen,
back.
I won't box DC. I'm out on the boxing, but I mean, I may get on the slab, but I don't want to mess with my coach like that. I want him in my
if you say you might have to.
I mean, if that's what it comes down to, I do that over boxing. I'll say that. Boxing, I would not want to get into that.
I didn't know I was walking into the bear den on this show, man. He's ready to go.
I'm loving it. I'm loving this. I want to see that on the slab. Maybe arm wrestle too. DC's the champ. You're the next man.
I don't know about arm wrestling. I'll save that to DC and Kurt. Like they were dominating that one. So I'm out on the arm wrestling.
DC was dominating, that's for sure. Kenneth Palmer said like. We appreciate that, Kenneth Palmer. So 560 watching, 210 likes. We need 300. Still 3 games left on this slate though. Next game on the slate: Phoenix Suns, Houston Rockets. 224 total. Phoenix is favored by 6.5. Going to the injury report for Phoenix. Devin Booker's out. Obviously, huge news. That's it for them, though. Going to the other team for Houston, Jayshawn Tate is still out. I'll keep going back to you, DC. I mean, it's Devin Booker out. Chris Paul, way too cheap, 6'2". Dario Saric should continue to start 3-3. Damian Lee, 3.5K. I think it's another value people go to. That's the value I was talking about in the Suns. There's definitely still other options. Ayton. I mean, how many Phoenix is too many? Who are your favorites? And can you get to any Rockets on this slate?
Yeah, I think this game is one where, on a 5-game slate, we talked about potentially, going with a Giannis Steph game stack, hoping that the other games don't work out. This is one where you can just fire in on this game and, potentially choose fill out your entire lineup with players from this game and then just go, one other position for your last guy. Anytime you can get to a game like this one where you can get essentially all the pieces that you want, right? So like you mentioned, Chris Paul, I think the best value on the slate. DeAndre Ayton, not far behind. You mentioned Damian Lee and Saric. I think I prefer Lee over Saric, but both those guys in play. Torrey Craig, 4,700, I think is a really good play. Mikal Bridges, 6,100. I mean, he's going to give you probably 40 plus minutes in just about the best possible matchup for him, right? A Rockets team that plays sloppy. He can get in passing lane, steals, get out in transition, and you're going to get huge minutes. Like he really can't hurt you at 6,100, and he's got upside, which he kind of normally lacks, partly due to the injuries to the Suns with Booker in particular, but also due to the matchup. So what is that? I mean, I think 6 Suns are pretty good plays on this slate. And then the Rockets guys, like they're not my number one, favorite point per dollar plays, but I mean, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., both of those guys capable of putting up 40 plus at their 7K price tags, right? I know the matchup's a little bit tough against the Suns and all that, but I think both these guys have played pretty well against the Suns. Yeah, Porter has played, they played the Suns twice. He's averaged 39 fantasy points per game in those 2 games. And then Jalen Green, 31. So not great, but he's also shot 13 for 42 in those 2 games. So you could see either or both of those guys getting there. And it doesn't even stop there with the Rockets, right? I think Jabari Smith Jr., who's played pretty well, 35, 34, 39 minutes in his last 3. He's got upside at 5,300, no question. And same thing with Alpero Sengun. So I just see a lot of pieces on both sides. You can get all the studs from this game that you want. And if this is a game that stays close and you get, potentially 35, 40 minutes out of all these guys, which, it's a fairly realistic scenario. it could really work out, especially if some of the other games, disappoint or blowouts or foul trouble, whatever it be. So this is my favorite game on the slate. I think everybody's going to go to the Phoenix side, obviously, but I like running it back with some of these Rockets. Yeah, you got to take a little bit of a tough matchup and, maybe a little bit of a hit on like the optimal point per dollar type of plays. But these are high upside plays. They're at home, a little bit of a shorthanded Phoenix team. Yeah, why not? Why not take a shot on some of these Houston guys as well? I love the game stack here, both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's a young, explosive team too. They get hot, they get going. They definitely have upside. I'll say Jabari Smith too, 34 minutes, 34, 39. People are going to go to Sengun. You get a little pivot there. He shot 1 for 9 last game, 28 DK points. Shoots a little better. I think he's got some upside too. So yeah, this is the game people are going to go to for sure. Mainly the Phoenix side. How many Phoenix Suns are too many men going? Talk about some of your favorite Rockets. Break it down for us.
Yeah, I do think let's knock off the Rocket side just because I think they're in play. I agree with what you guys are saying. For me, it'd probably be Jabari Smith because he's forward eligible. I think that's sort of interesting. I would probably set a rule of like getting like max of 1 of like Porter, Green, and Sengun. I just don't know if all of them will get there. That's kind of one of the concerns I would have. But I mean, definitely max of 2. I wouldn't want all 3 on my teams. That would not work out well. Sengun at center. I like him, but man, this matchup is not the easiest. But if he gets the minutes, he could absolutely dominate. That's the key with him always is will he get the minutes? So I don't hate taking a stab on him. If I had to pick between KPJ and Jalen Green, it'd probably be KPJ. So that would be probably my second favorite. And then Jalen Green probably third. So yeah, that's kind of the Rocket side. I don't want to mess too much with them. Maybe Eric Gordon becomes like an interesting spend down option if you need some value plays, but not trying to jam in those guys. Guys are trying to jam in are the Phoenix Suns. And it's clearly Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul and Ayton are probably like the 2 best plays on the slate that you want to kind of get onto your lineups. I mean, 6.2K for Chris Paul, 7.2K for Ayton at the center spot. Seems hard to argue. One way to just instantly be different, title, is if you just X'd out DeAndre Ayton. If you just said, give me the projections, X out Ayton, you'd have some pretty unique teams right off the bat, just right away. Because a lot of people are going to play him. Not saying that's what you should do, but that's a quick way to be unique if you'd like to. And there are some good centers on this slate, so it's not the craziest idea in the world. But I think that Chris Paul is number 1 for me. Then it's DeAndre Ayton at number 2, mainly because of the positions. Then you have to talk about Bridges. We'll go to him, and then we'll talk about those values because Mikal Bridges is in a good spot. And matchup-wise, I like him in these games where it's like an up and down, back and forth kind of game, especially one where I'm not worried about him chasing around like a top player. Like, sure, he's going to have to chase around like the best player on almost any team, but I'm not worried about him using his energy chasing someone like Curry around or something crazy like that, So overall, Mikal Bridges too in this matchup where there's not a lot of rim protection with Sengun, he can get after and have a massive game. So I like his ceiling here in this spot. He's number 3 for me. And then the value plays are the ones to talk about next. And these values are not like the safest values in the world. They're good plays. And relative to this slate, yeah, like we're going to like Dario Saric. We're going to like Damian Lee. But if Dario Saric ends up coming in at 60%, I mean, isn't it worth considering a fade, right? I mean, it's still Saric. He still might not get the closeout run. They've closed with Damian Lee. You could even make a case to not play them both together just because one of them is going to lose that last rotation. Could both get there, though, at that price without getting that last rotation? Yes, you are 100% right. But overall, I think Dario Saric and Damian Lee, both good value plays that you need to be considering. And there's 5 Suns that I just talked about that are really good plays. I didn't even mention Cameron Payne, who could get in there and have a good game. But the one concern I have with Cameron Payne is he hasn't really played with the starters as of late. If you notice, there was a game that was on an island on Sunday during the football games, which a lot of people missed, but Booker did not play. And they started Torrey Craig, Dario Saric, Ayton, Bridges, and Chris Paul. And even Torrey Craig probably shouldn't be completely ignored here as like a value play that you can get onto your team. So you want to play these Suns. If you X them all out of your pool, I think that's a mistake tonight. The question is, how many are you going to play? My thought process is most teams right now are playing 3 to 4, and 3 to 4 is perfectly fine. But then you're going to have to make sure you're different in other spots, right? Maybe it's trying to grab one of those contrarian spend ups, or maybe it's just playing like 2, or maybe it's being like, hey, I'll grab the 2 values who we talked about in Saric and Lee, and then only grab Chris Paul and then play 3 of them. That would be unique. Those are things that I think about when kind of building out my lineups. I like to see what the optimal's doing, what I think most people are going to do. and then go from there. And these are things that I talk about a lot in my single entry and 3 max. I don't know the exact number yet of what I want to go with. My number I'm sitting on is between 2 and 4, but I wouldn't hate the idea of just playing 3 and going just slightly underweight. I'm still getting exposure to these really good plays, but I need to see what the alternatives are going to be. And that's going to depend on some of how the news shakes out here coming up.
Yeah, no, that's a good talking point. If you play 2 Suns in your lineup and just 2 Suns, you already know you're going to have a different build than most people in the field. You play 3 or 4, you're going to be more in line. Got to get a little different elsewhere. So I do like that breakdown, man. Go and reference his single entry, 3 entry content. It's always up on the site. Does it for football, NBA, MLB, college football. Do need to be a member to get all that stuff, as well as Big T's player pool, playbook, core plays, Cash Chart, the Up to Lock show today, which we should get some news on. All of that is premium. Head over Run Pure Sports, check it out. Make sure you do get in the Discord as well. Looking at the likes, 242, so 58 more likes for 300 for the plays of the day. Still got 2 games left. We do appreciate it. Next game on the slate, New Orleans Pelicans, Utah Jazz, 232.5 total. Pelicans are favored by 2. On the Pelicans side, Brandon Ingram is still out. Nothing changed there. As far as Utah, Colin Sexton's also out. DC, I'll go back to you in this one. Someone in chat said, who's the best spend up option tonight? Well, we have a spend up in Zion in this game, who is absolutely being a grown ass man. The thing about Zion has always been the minutes, the conditioning, all of that. The minutes are way up there now. I mean, he has such a high floor. I talk about it on this show a lot, but all the shot attempts are pretty much in the paint. You're not going 1 for 15 in the paint like you are from deep with guys like Steph that could or whatever. So, man, I don't see much ownership on Zion. I think he is a very strong play. Colin still got a good price tag. Break down this game and then I guess answer, who is your favorite spend up tonight?
Yeah, Zion looks borderline unstoppable right now. On a mission, his MVP odds are skyrocketing at the moment. I still kind of like those if he's able to stay healthy. I think the Pelicans are first in the West right now, and playing really well, led by Zion. I believe Utah has given up the most points in the paint of any team in basketball. They really don't have rim protection, right? It's like Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk, and it's just not it's not guys that you really think can slow down Zion. The dude's scoring at will, right? The only way to really stop him is to foul him on his way to the basket. Looks like teams know what he's going to do, and they can't stop him anyway. So yeah, I love Zion at 9,500. I don't think he's a must play. His price has come up to the point where obviously he's got to have a really big game at that price point to make it worth it. And there are plenty of good spends. I think you'll see pretty spread out ownership among the studs. Zion obviously being included in that, but he is my favorite play definitely on the New Orleans side. Obviously Ingram's still out is a nice boost to Zion, but yeah, just getting whatever he wants. And, as long as he's healthy, it doesn't really seem like he's going to slow down. This also is obviously really, really good matchup for him. So yeah, love Zion here. CJ McCollum, probably the second Pelican I would go to, although I doubt I'll get to him just with all I'm going to play Chris Paul, and then I would rather play guys like Poole, even the Rockets guys over McCollum tonight for me. So I won't end up getting there, but he would be my second favorite a Pelican to play rather. And then on the Utah side, you can go to some of these guys. Jordan Clarkson, I think, is okay with Sexton still on the bench. Conley is pretty damn cheap, 5,400. He'll be low owned. I think he's, not the highest upside guy, but could certainly get there. But Utah a little bit healthier, right? Markkanen's been out. He's back this game. They've still got obviously Vanderbilt, Olynyk, Kessler. So a little bit of a crowded front court there minutes wise. I don't think I'll have a ton from this game. I'm sure that'll be kind of the chalk way to go. Zion, definitely my favorite play overall in this one.
I like it. Good breakdown. Mangone, Zion, who is your favorite stud too? Actually, DC, you didn't answer that. Who is your favorite stud on this slate? Or are you just not prioritizing?
I'm probably going balanced, but I think my favorite stud is Embiid.
Like it. Mangone, answer that question. Talk about Zion, what you like in this game.
Yeah, I guess what's your definition of stud? Does it have to be above 10K? Is that the criteria?
I would say I think Zion and up on this slate.
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason I call this out is so if you look at teams today, a lot of them go more LeBron, Harden, Zion. Those three are kind of in this tier that people are going to play more of, and that's going to be more of a natural build. if you go and grab Embiid, Davis, and Giannis, one common thing with those teams is they punt Damian Lee and they punt Dario Saric, right? So like if you happen to play, let's say you think Damian Lee and Saric are like elite values, if you played them with Zion instead of Giannis, that would make you a lot different with your setup. And on the flip side, if you didn't play Damian Lee and Saric with Embiid and Giannis, that would make that build unique in some type of way because they kind of go hand in hand when you build things out. When it comes to spending up for me, man, that I'd say it's Giannis number one if I had to pick, but it's close between Giannis and Embiid. And then I think Davis is a distant third. And then when it comes to the other options that are in like that, like other range where it's LeBron, Harden, and Zion, oh man, it's a tough one. I think I'm going to go with Harden as my number one. And then I probably lean Zion two, and then LeBron third. That would kind of be the way that I grade it out. But yeah, it's not an easy decision point for sure on this slate. Because I think those are in two different classes because the constructions are completely different when you do that. And Zion's a good play. He's not someone I'm going to be ignoring on this slate. When I run stuff, I'm going to look at Zion teams and say, can I find a pretty good one? The only thing I run into this kind of issue sometimes is like, I'll look at CJ McCollum and I'll look at Zion. And I feel like I want to have CJ McCollum on my teams. And then I'm like, do I want to play Zion with him? I'm not sure. Not saying it can't work out, but I just don't know if I need to go that route today. So that's kind of one of those things that's like a mental block in my head when kind of looking through lineups. But Zion, power forward eligible, certainly in play as an option. CJ McCollum, really good value. Jonas Valanciunas, hard pass. His minutes are just so volatile. I see him popping up on some teams. Yeah. I understand it. If you nail the Jonas Valanciunas game, I'll tip my cap and say, congrats, you had a great day. Not for me in this matchup. I'm out on that. I know that the Jazz have had some injury issues. It seems like Lauri Markkanen will be back. I don't think this is a Lauri Markkanen spot. I doubt I'll be getting to too many Jazz options, right? We can't play everyone on this slate. Jazz feel like a pretty decent fade for me. The only guy I maybe would consider a little bit is like, I think a Kelly Olynyk could find his way to getting there here on this slate. And he's got that power forward eligibility, but there's other guys in that range that I just prefer instead. So I doubt I'll really get to any Jazz options. And then it's mainly looking at Zion and looking at CJ McCollum on the Pelicans side. And the Valanciunas thing, like I said before, I just think it's a good fade on this slate. Don't mess around with him.
Yep, good breakdown. And we also did get a news a little bit ago. Actually, just got the Fox news. So Fox will play. D'Anthony Melton is ruled out. So Drew Holiday is the only news we're waiting on right now. With Melton out, Korkmaz, Milton, I assume one of the two will probably slide in the starting lineup. Any interest, either of you guys, for the starter? I mean, still Harden, still Embiid there. It's not like they're going to be really carrying the load on offense, but they're 3K.
Milton's price is still up a little bit for playing all those games without Harden, right? 5,200.
Korkmaz is 3K, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Korkmaz, 3K even. But I mean, with Embiid and Harden there, they're just gonna. I just think you just give more bumps to Harden and Embiid, frankly, for the most part. So, yeah, someone's gonna have to play those minutes, but I just don't anticipate them doing enough.
I like this spot a lot for Embiid and Harden. Someone asked me to play them together. Listen, when you play those two together, like that's just like a build that I don't think like works. Like I don't really.
There's so many other studs in all those ranges. Why would you take if Embiid? Like we just saw last game, Embiid put up 76 or whatever. Like Harden's not putting up 70 when Embiid puts up 76. Like
I agree, and like I'm just gonna go through right now. I'm gonna lock both and just see what happens and see if it's like anything I could like. Because sometimes you surprise yourself. And listen, it's not the craziest idea, but like this is what it does. And this is if you were playing a Harden and Embiid core, I guess this is what I would give out. You'd play Damian Lee, you'd play Saric, and you'd play Connaughton, right?
Well, you have to throw a king in there too, because that game has to be close. You're probably even hoping OT. And not only that, I think you're hoping other games like blow out where the studs don't get so I would have to play one, maybe two kings. It could be Barnes, Herter, Murray.
I think Herter, yeah.
I would definitely play it.
Keeps him in it, yeah.
Yeah, something though. I would definitely make that rule if I'm playing both.
You'd have to make sure it's one of those like 5 or 4K guys though that like maybe could pop off for a ceiling game. Like maybe Terrence Davis pops off and you replace him for like a Connaughton and like that Bucks game just gets nasty. It's brutal though. Like you are having to play when you play Harden and Embiid, you are forced into going Lee, Saric, and Connaughton because you don't have any value. Like it's just, and we have value, but it's all in the mid tier today. That's where all the good plays are at. They're there and they're not down low. And I saw someone in chat. We didn't talk about Larry Nance, but he was like, I think it was Butthole Jenkins said, Larry Nance is a good play today. Sure, Larry Nance is in the conversation today, but I know Herb Jones is going to be back, I think. And on top of that, like Larry Nance Jr. is not a good value relative to other slates we have played with values. Let's just at least keep that in mind. He's an okay value today for slate context, but there are routes where it don't work out for Larry Nance. He ain't this like lock and load like Tyus Jones was yesterday.
Oh no, this the value on this slate is not. You couple the Suns guys, but outside of that, it's a lot thinner than we've had in the past. It's 5-game slate though. At the end of the day, everyone's working with the same thing. So
yeah, which means you can get creative with them, right? Title. That's why I'm saying like some of these like if you wanted to play the Harden and Embiid idea, play some of these Kings values and hope these other ones maybe bust. That could be the route that works out for you. So maybe take a chance on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's 4 of the 5 games down. We got 1 game left. The likes 19 away. We have about 650 watching. Should easily be able to get 350, make a push to 400. We'll get you the plays of the day at 300 though. When you do hit that like button, big red subscribe button down to the left. We appreciate when you hit that as well. Last game on the slate, Boston Celtics, Los Angeles Lakers, 235.5 total. Boston is favored by 4. Robert Williams is out. Al Horford is out for Boston. As far as the Lakers, Juan Toscano Anderson, Wendy Gabriel, both out, so not much there. Mango, I'll go to you to start this one in the last game. What are your thoughts? Boston, Lakers, you get into this game much? If so, who?
Yeah, now we got to remind the people they're 17 likes away. I don't know if you said a title, but you got to get that home to 300. We said a decent number. Let's get the likes home, give out those plays of the day for the people. Yep. But yeah, this game is, man, it's an interesting one because I don't think we're going to get news, but we should talk about it. It's a 3-4 for Boston. I mean, could Malcolm Brogdon randomly sit? Like, wouldn't shock me. Could we see some of these guys sit? Yes, I think we could, but I'm not necessarily going to plan for it. I'm curious to see what happens with these reports that come out here now. Maybe something pops up here shortly, but Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon feel like really good value plays to me. I mean, if Malcolm Brogdon is going to play and going to get the normal minutes that he does, he comes in with that second unit. If you know his rotation, he is not a starter. When he comes in, he is going to feast on this defense. It is not going to be pretty, the setup that he's going to be able to go against. I think he could be in for a massive game. So really like Malcolm Brogdon in this spot. I think Marcus Smart at 5'9" could be an interesting play as well. Jaylen Brown at 9.2K feels like a hefty tag, but the man has been absolutely nuking lately. The only problem is 9.2 does feel like an expensive tag, especially when you look at Zion and some of these other options. Could be a little bit of a contrarian option for you. Don't hate it. And he had 3 fouls yesterday. That's why he played so bad. He got 3 fouls early on in that first half, and then they had to pull him out the game. And he had to play a little bit differently. So I don't mind Jaylen Brown. I like him more than Jason Tatum. I think Jason Tatum's price at 11K is a little tough for me to swallow. Rather go to Jaylen Brown on this slate. Because like I said before, I think the way that I want to build today is kind of like Coach S was saying in the chat. Kind of grab Ayton, Paul, CJ McCollum, some of these like mid-tier, really good guys, and then grab one of these like higher 9K guys. That's why I think Jaylen Brown could qualify as a contrarian option in that range if you want to get some Boston Celtics exposure here. So yeah, we'll talk about the Lakers side of the ball. Curious to see if there's anyone here we want to play. I mean, Anthony Davis and LeBron, I think, are the only two. Yeah. And then after that, it's like we talked about how good this 6K range is. Can we really stomach playing Russell Westbrook at 6'7" when they have all these guards that can stay in front of him? I'll pass on playing Westbrook. Not going to play roulette with Walker, Beverly, Reeves, and all these Lakers values. It's really just, do I play a LeBron James at 9.8 or an Anthony Davis at 11.1 as a spend up? And I just don't think I'm going to get there as much today. If I get to any of them as a spend, it's LeBron James, just because the price at 9.8 does feel a little cheap for sure. So that's kind of all I got here for this game. But the Celtics side is definitely the more appealing spot, specifically those value guards in Brogdon and Smart.
Yeah, man, the more I keep looking at this, AD's ownership, and then you just look at what he's been doing. It just, I mean, last 4 games, not including the one he got injured, 70, 54, 85, 71. Like that's I'll take 70 or 85 in my lineup on this slate.
No one's playing him title.
That's what I mean.
Everyone is going Embiid before that. They're going Giannis. Like Davis is going to be below 10%. So, and that's what I said. There's a lot of studs today, and like the ownership is really going to spread out thin between them all. None of them are really going to come in at like 40 or 50% owned.
That's what I mean. This slate's awesome. I mean, man, anytime you can get an AD on 5 games at that. I'll throw out another name for you, DC. I saw a couple of people throwing it out in chat. Old man Blake Griffin. We're talking value on this slate. I don't know if I can do it, but Boston Lakers, what you got?
Yeah, Griffin's been pretty good these last. Well, I mean, he's been over 20 fantasy points 4 straight games, which isn't bad for 3,800.
Did you see? I'm sure you're watching the football game last night. Blake Griffin almost turned Zubac into Timothy Mozgov. He had the hammer pulled back and he was going to slam it home and he just couldn't reach enough. But Blake Griffin has looked pretty decent for the Celtics. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, he's certainly contributed. I will say the Anthony Davis thing I think you guys brought up is interesting because that is the best way for the Lakers to attack this Boston team, right? They've got all these great defenders at the guard position, obviously Smart, Brown, Tatum, Brogdon, all these guys are pretty stout defensively. Grant Williams, even where Boston is weak is, missing Horford, missing Robert Williams, 2 good defenders. Now you've got Griffin, Cornette, Vonleh, right? All these guys that are going to try to throw at Anthony Davis. No reason Davis couldn't kind of continue the monster games he's been putting up, probably sub 10% ownership, I think, on Anthony Davis. So I do like that call. I doubt I'll get there on my main lineup, but he could absolutely go off. So I think he would be my preferred play from the Lakers. Probably under 10K LeBron would be second, but it's getting pretty crowded, in terms of just who's going to have the ball in their hands. Obviously, it's going to be LeBron most of the time, but they've got Westbrook that plays pretty big minutes off the bench. Now they've got, Dennis Schroeder and even Lonnie Walker can do a little bit. Patrick Beverly is a kind of a point guard by trade. So it does get a little bit crowded, I think, in that Laker backcourt. The guy that just stands out as being completely irreplaceable, though, is Anthony Davis, right? He's the guy that I think has the best chance to kind of lead the Lakers to victory tonight if they were to get one. So he would be my preferred choice on the Lakers. Boston, I won't end up with much Boston. I did like Mangone's call of Brogdon, 4,800, been playing well off the bench, and he does have a really excellent matchup going against that Lakers second unit. So I do like that call on Brogdon, but overall won't have a ton from this game on my own teams.
Yep, it makes sense. I don't think I'll get to too much either. AD is definitely the one that stared me in the face, but it's tough. I don't know what I'm going to do with him yet. Core plays, playbook, all that stuff up. You do have to be a member to see all that. Up to Lock Show will be important too. The Drew Holiday news will be out on that show. They'll break it down. Obviously, if he's out, the whole slate changes. We're assuming that he does play. But that was all 5 games. The likes, 318 likes. We appreciate it. We can easily make it push to 350 though. Let's get those before we get out. We're going to get you the plays of the day. Start with myself first with the SO play of the day. Going to that Phoenix and the Houston game. I'm going to the Houston side of the ball though. 5.3K, Jabari Smith. Can play him at power. I had to go first. Can play him at power forward. Everyone's playing a lot of Suns. I think it makes sense playing a Rocket, a lot of minutes. Hopefully he shoots a little better. I think he has a lot of upside there. And you can play him at that power forward position. So he is the SO play of the day. We'll give DC a little more time to find another one. Mango and Sweet Travis play of the day. Who do you got?
Oh, it's tough because what qualifies as like chalk. It's hard to
whatever you think, Mango, and I won't veto nothing. You say you can go ahead and say DeAndre Ayton. I'll say all right.
I mean, I don't think I'm going. Let DC. Do you have yours ready to go or no?
Yeah, I can give out mine.
DC, Mom's basement play of the day.
Yeah, I'm sticking in that same game. I'll go to the Phoenix side though. He's definitely going to have ownership of Mikal Bridges. Just think this is a perfect spot for him in this pace-up game against Houston. Can get out defensively, and obviously with the guys Phoenix is missing. I mean, Bridges plays big minutes anyway, but you could be looking into the low to mid 40s potentially for Bridges in minutes here. Ceiling sometimes somewhat limited just because he doesn't shoot a ton, but with Booker out, with the matchup, all that stuff, I do think this is a good spot for a ceiling game for Bridges, who does remain cheap, 6,100 on DK.
Yeah, he had one of his highest usage rates of the year last game. He shot 23 times, 13 threes. I mean, I love Bridges. Mangone, Sweet Travis play of the day.
Yeah, let's give you an off the board Suns play, right? He's gonna start. It's Torrey Craig. I played him a little bit this year, 4.7K. Well, everyone grabs like Damian Lee and Sarge. I think they're good plays. I'm not saying they're bad or anything. 4.7K Torrey Craig could be an interesting option for sure in that, especially if you did like more of like a middling build, right? Let's say you don't decide to go up and grab an Embiid or any of those guys, or maybe say you do decide to go grab them and instead you decide to go to Torrey Craig. I mean, this Rockets team, they play up and down and they play fast, and you could easily play Torrey Craig at the 5 at times if you really wanted to. Play him at the 4, he can clean up on the boards a bit. So we'll go with Torrey Craig at 4.7K. We'll make him the play of the day.
Torrey Craig, Mikal Bridges, Jabari Smith Jr., the 3 plays of the day. That's the game a lot of people are going to go to. There's no doubt about that. Up to Lock Show. We'll see you in the live show chat in 20 minutes. Waiting on Drew Holiday news, seeing what Big T, JSU, and Holden think about the slate. How to run Pure Sports. Make sure you do get in the Discord. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that big red subscribe button on your way out. We appreciate it. Let's see some RPS logos up top. We'll see you back here tomorrow for DC, Mango, and Simon Behind the Sticks. I'm Titletown. Good luck, everybody.